another episode of the Man on Second podcast. My name is Eric. I know a lot of people are asking, where is Mike? Unfortunately, the show must go on. He has an appointment that he has to attend to today, so he wasn't able to make it. As always, I am joined by Joe Frisario. How you doing today, Joe?
Good, Eric, and thanks for pinch hitting. Mike will be back shortly. Eric's going to be available from what I understand, and we're happy to have you come in and bail us out this week. And with the regular season ending, the playoffs starting, there's a lot to get to. We're just starting to get this thing rolling, so let's kind of get it going.
No, absolutely. And as always, you can find this episode as well as all of our episodes on the Five Reasons YouTube channel, and as well on you can follow us on Twitter at Man on Second Baseball. Uh, so, Joe, I know the first thing that you wanted to really talk about was you kind of wanted to do an almost like a little bit of an autopsy on the Marlins season this year, 67 and 95. So, autopsy feels like an appropriate word here for this.
Yeah, that a little stronger than I might have used, but yeah, you kind of nailed it. It wasn't a good year. Um, you know, I was a little baffled at the over optimism internally. That I think they completely misread the room. I think they completely overvalued 60 games compared to 162. And I saw the team a lot in spring training, and I saw a solid team with some with good pitching and with some good prospects. But the alarmingness for me was to hear, oh, they think they're going to win the division and they're going to do this. And when every major analytical measure suggested of last place or second to last place caliber team, 90 loss caliber team. And my skepticism wasn't, obviously the offense was going to have its challenges, but their young pitching staff just wasn't proven over 162, and it didn't hold up again. The pitching, as strong as it was, we had the individual moments from Sandy Alcantara. We saw the emergence of Jazz Chisholm, but we saw Pablo Lopez once again, after the All-Star break, going down. Trevor Rogers, as strong of a first half as he had, he wasn't on the mound much in the second half for a variety of reasons, but he also wasn't on the mound. Eliezer Hernandez's injury really coming out of the chute, I think game 3 or 4 when he went down, that really hurt them. Pablo's injury really hurt them. Sixto Sanchez's surgery and didn't pitch all year hurt them. And, so there are a lot of things that snowballed that made this season, less than enviable. Yet, like every season, though, there are moments, and we saw Sandy just emerge. 200 innings, 200 strikeouts is certainly something to hang your hat on, and good for him. And now they head into what should be a very busy and an interesting offseason, to say the least.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to make it seem like the season was all doom and gloom, because there were legitimate good moments. I don't think I've ever seen a player, a pitcher, or a hitter flip the switch as clearly as I think Alcantara did towards the end of the season, where you know he's always had good stuff and has been able to strike guys out, but all of a sudden he started stringing together starts where he was striking out 10, 11 guys, and he was just dominant in a way that I don't think we had seen. We always knew that he had it in him, but in a way that he hadn't done prior to this season.
Yeah,
But
he showed. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
no, no, no. I was gonna say, and the other guys all had their moments, but it's not just that they're young. It's these guys so far, specifically Eliezer and Pablo. They've had issues with being available throughout their career, and I think it's unfortunate, but it is part of the evaluation.
Yeah, there's no question. If your goal is playoffs, that's you got to have everything clicking. I mean, they went into the year with what, 2 Rule 5 guys. They had a rookie second baseman who they weren't sure. They had some, yes, they had Starling Marte, they had Adam Duvall, Jesus Aguilar, Miggy, as kind of stabilizers, Brian Anderson. But they really, I would have liked to see more of a temper expectations and then surprise than to throw it out there and say, we are good. Because I covered this team now 20th season. And the team internally kind of knew where they were. Yeah, you might say, yeah, everyone has optimism. You hope to catch lightning in a bottle. But the sincerity that this team didn't get there was a little shocking to me. Like, why did they think it? And I'm gonna lay stuff out, because obviously we're gonna get into. We know they're gonna plan on spending money in the offseason. They're gonna, obviously, hitting is a priority. But I just want people to kind of, and we'll get to offense in a minute. Yes, the strength of the organization is starting pitching at multiple levels. However, I think we need to temper that because my concerns going into 22 are basically going to be like in 21, where you literally, outside of 2 pitchers in 21 coming into, had guys who had, been into August. Sandy really the only one to go wire to wire. And so I'm going to just look, obviously team ERA. The Marlins ended up finishing 11th in team ERA with a 3.96. The teams in front of them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The first 8 in front of them all are in the playoffs. So if you think the Marlins pitching's elite right now, the 8 teams in the playoffs had better team ERA. Starters ERA, the strength of the organization. And ERA is just one measure. Obviously, there's a lot.
Right.
They finished tied with the Rays at 13th, basically 4.08 team starter ERA. Number 1 team, LA Dodgers 2.93. Number 2, the Brewers 3.13. And then again, in that top 10, about 7 are in the playoffs, and 2 others are in your division have better starter ERA than you. Atlanta has a better starter ERA than the Marlins, and so do the Mets, 3.84 and 3.89 compared to 4.08. So now you think the Marlins starting pitching is better. Well, the Mets, even without DeGrom and the Braves without Soroka, they still finish with better starter ERAs. Then, to me, a completely undervalued stat is innings pitched. I think we get carried away. We love. I saw so many headlines: 11 strikeouts in 4 innings. Who cares? It's the outs are the 4 innings taxed your bullpen. The Marlins finished 25th in starter ERA. The team that was 28th happened to be Tampa Bay. But we knew that they're a bullpenning team. They're the outlier. They kind of built themselves that way. Plus, they lost, Glass now. They traded Rich Hill. Archer didn't pitch much. Those were guys in their opening day rotation. And innings pitch, you looked at Oakland leading it, and just a number of teams much higher in starter ERA. And so again, those are some things. That doesn't mean that I don't think that these starters can make the leap, but they're banking on it. When you look at the Marlins rotation, basically, you had Sandy making 33 starts, getting 205 and 2/3 innings. Imagine what this year would look like without him. If he went 150 innings, it could have been a lot uglier. They're 28 under anyway. Second most innings pitched, Trevor Rogers, 133. Then Pablo, 102.2. Their 4th guy in innings pitched this year was Zach Thompson, who no one saw was coming out. Then you had Dylan Floro had more innings pitched than Eliezer Hernandez, and so on. You had Sandy Leon throwing more innings than Jorge Guzman, one of your pitching prospects. So you had your catcher, your emergency catcher, basically throwing 6 innings to Guzman's 1.2. Point being, where next year or is that step? So if now you're going next year and you're saying we're in it, we're just going to load up on offense, I think you probably want to throw a veteran pitcher, not just a closer or a back-end bullpen guy, because as much as people want to talk about it, the Marlins bullpen, believe it or not, had the 7th best ERA among all bullpens at 3.81, and they threw the 7th highest amount of innings. So they were being taxed and they were performing, but they are also the most maligned. And even a lot of scout types I talk to say, oh, they got a bad bullpen. The numbers don't necessarily reflect that. You might look at each individual, but they did a remarkable job considering they were coming in throwing 4 or 5 innings a night on many, many nights. And I get it. Some of those nights were bullpen nights, but get a load of this. Tampa Bay's bullpen, unsurprisingly, 703 innings, by far most in baseball. They had the 3rd best bullpen ERA.
Wow.
And not surprising if you look at all these ERA numbers, whether it's the number 1s and number 2 teams in pitching and starter bullpen innings and pretty much across the board, the Giants and the Dodgers, and they are 107, 106 wins. So I just throwing those numbers out there, just to kind of caution that we gotta, there's that narrative, and we love young pitching, and we say they're all 23 and they're all just going to get better and it's all going to be wonderful. I've seen it before, and until you prove it at the big leagues, you're hoping. And if you're trying to make that leap, they got a lot of work to do.
Yeah, I think this is a staff that would greatly benefit from uh, just bringing in a rock solid veteran. Doesn't have to be a top of the rotation guy because you have those guys, but just somebody that you can count on to eat innings consistently. Preferably somebody that's been on a good team, has kind of been there, done that in the past. For because when you're projecting out the rotation, I think it's really, you're almost overly optimistic if you're projecting Sixto Sanchez to just be in the rotation and be good for the entire season. That's a tough ask for somebody like that.
No question. And I'm going to give you one reason I think why innings pitched were down. Their walks per nine, starters walks per nine. The Marlins had the fifth highest at 3.40 walks per nine. Obviously, the teams that don't walk anybody, those rotations, Dodgers one, Giants two.
Right.
And, the Rays fifth. Even though the Marlins and the Rays starters do the same amount of innings, one is basically a little bit less than a full walk per game than the other. And that drives your pitch counts up. Yes, Luzardo struck out 11 the last game of the year. He's got it in him to have moments, but he's got to really reduce those walks. And you're not going. And look what Sandy did. Sandy, like you noted earlier, he had 11 K games. He had like 14. I mean, he had some really dominant games, but then he'd have games with 6 or 7 and go 8. That type of number. Someone will say yes or no, but the point is he didn't need the Ks to get deep in the game because the ask might have been, get me there, get weak contact, get that sinker going, get ground balls, let's get quick outs, and let's get back in the dugout, save the bullpen. And so you're going to be asking, hey, I think Edward Cabrera could be a very, very good pitcher.
Absolutely.
But if the ask is for him to come in and be Rookie of the Year next year, that's, again, like you said about Sixto's coming back from surgery, it may not be until 2 or 3 years away that he starts becoming more of the Alcantara type of player that we think he is. There's a difference between talent and matching that up with experience. And keep this in mind too, Eric. Next year, it's probably going to be a DH in National League. So you're not going to log that ninth batter strikeout that the Marlins pitchers and all teams were logging this year. So you're going to have to navigate. Your eighth hitter is going to be made better. Your ninth hitters are going to be better. With the DH. So you got like, I find it remarkable if you look at the team ERAs, the highest ERA, meaning the highest, meaning the best, not the lowest in terms of the worst. Well, the Rays pitching team ERA of 3.67, which is the best team ERA in the American League, the league with the DH, obviously. So those are some things I'm throwing out there for those who say, oh, well, pitching is elite. Show elite when you're elite, not say you're elite. I've heard more elite this year for a team that almost lost 30 more games than they won in a bad division. So let's get the pitching right. Let's grow it right, and not if that pitching is compromised, trying to be more than they are. That's what's going to be their challenge. Because they're going to want to spend money, and they are going to do that, and they need to upgrade the offense. We'll get to those numbers because
absolutely
they're pretty bad though. So just kind of your thoughts on what I said and just kind of how you kind of, like you said, just get that good, an innings guy, a veteran presence that could kind of stabilize and what that can mean.
Yeah, I mean, you look at, and we're going to talk about the playoffs a little bit later. We're going to talk about the Cardinals. I mean, look at what a guy like Adam Wainwright did for the Cardinals this year, even at his advanced age, just being an anchor for them. But when you look at this rotation, and you're right about the word elite kind of being thrown out there a little, loosey-goosey by the fan base, I think it projects to be elite. All of these guys, if you look at them individually, they project to be elite, but you can't look at them today in 2021 and say they are elite, especially as a unit. You could say Alcantara is elite. I wouldn't put that moniker on anybody else yet, just because I don't think that they've been consistent enough or played long enough to kind of give you that. I do wonder to an extent, what they want to do with a guy like Eliezer, given that he projects to be the odd man out if Cabrera and Sixto are ready to be in the rotation as early as next year. Mm-hmm. But you look at it, I think it's a lot to ask for them to number one, if you're going to contend for the division, to have, your 3, 4, 5 guys in the rotation be Trevor, Sixto, and Cabrera.
Yeah. That's a good question, and it gets to, I'm going to even throw a solution out there, because I think we can learn a lot from our friends over on the west coast of Florida, up in Tampa, who recognized when Glasnow went down and recognized that they had to promote the Shane McClanahan's, and then at the end bring up a Shane Baz, 2 rookies, one 22 years old in Baz, who's made 3 big league starts, that you've got to kind of throw the traditional handbook away. And we know Tampa Bay has long ago done that, but the Marlins haven't. They still are pretty much a traditional team, although Mel Stottlemyre brings a very much analytical, balance to the old school mechanical approach type of, way he builds his pitchers. But you got Eliezer, you say, who is another guy who to me is a 5th starter swing man. He doesn't really go deep in the game. That's not to say he can't, but for the most part, he's a 4 or 5 inning guy. But you also have Nick Neidert, you have Braxton Garrett, you have Jordan Holloway, and I'm probably missing somebody at the top, Cody Petit, Daniel Castano. Those guys all kind of fit that. Why aren't you hybriding and maybe thinking you're 3? Hey, this start is going to be Castano 3, Holloway 3, and then get us to the 7th. You can do that. You can do that with Eliezer 4. Then go 2 or so, and then get you to the back end of your bullpen. You could start thinking that way, but they don't think that way, and they got a manager in Don Mattingly, and I love Donnie, but Donnie's not that kind of manager. Derek Jeter's a traditionalist as an owner, and Gary Denbo in development. That's what they have, that Dodger Yankee traditional blueprint. Right. They're not, their blueprint isn't to think, yes, okay, they went a little bit that way with the opener, but yeah, I mean, you could use, yes, maybe you do that. Maybe you go Jordan Holloway for an inning, 2/3, 2, and then Eliezer goes from the 3rd inning. If they want to go that way, fine, that's way too. But I think that's what you have to do, because I think there is depth in numbers of big leaguers, but not elite. And how do you get the most? And I'll bring up the guy that gets me in trouble on Twitter, Adam Connolly, being used properly in Tampa instead of exposed without a true role here in Miami, and you end up just getting rid of the guy, and then he goes to a team that's in the postseason. He's going to get postseason money. I don't care if Adam Connolly left and went to Pittsburgh and just played out the string. That's one thing. That's just rosters are being filled. The Tampa Bay Rays won 100 games and trusted him and got production out of him for 20 innings. And so why aren't the Marlins? I'd like to see more of that thought process to being that way, and maximizing your inventory to their strengths, and not saying, hey, Nick Neidert, be a 7-inning starter, because he's not that. But he's a big leaguer, but get the most out of Nick Neidert.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little, I do think that they need to experiment with being a little bit less traditional, because like you noted the Yankees and the Dodgers, and when you can pay up for the rotation that the Dodgers can, sure, you can do that, but the Marlins aren't necessarily in that position. They have to get a little bit more creative.
Absolutely. Let's get to the offense first, and then we move on. So,
absolutely.
What was your takeaway from the offense this year?
Overall, the offense this year, I mean, when everybody's healthy, I suppose if you add 1 or 2 more bats to it, it's not ugly. Assuming that guys like Jesus Sanchez and Brian De La Cruz are for real. De La Cruz, I put a little bit less weight into what he did than a guy like Jesus Sanchez, especially when you delve into the batting average, on balls in play numbers, things like that. I think Aguilar's, going to be in the middle of the lineup. I liked what I saw out of Lewin Diaz in his later stint. It's like the pitching. You're relying on a lot of young guys, and I think that they can benefit from bringing in, 2, maybe 3 guys that you can count on to be consistent veterans, kind of anchor the lineup for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And the quick numbers, the general team numbers, Marlins finished 29th in runs scored, 28th in home runs, and slugging 29th. I put a lot of value in slugging because that gets your doubles
Right.
and your homers and such. And in strikeout rate, they were second behind the Cubs. So they struck at a 26.2% rate. The Cubs 26.7. You can't be high K, low slugging. You could be high slugging, high K, but you maybe hit a ton of homers and strikeout, and you're at least you're Adam Duvall, but you're at least are going to win your share. You can't not slug, and which raises their off season. They clearly are wanting vast improvement, and it seems like the directive from ownership and from Derek Jeter's words, and Donnie kind of echoed it when I saw him on Friday, that there will be dollars allocated for free agents. And now, what does that mean? I don't think that they're going to go sign Correa for $300 million, but
Right.
they have dollars allocated for my personal campaign I've been doing since early in the year is Nicholas Castellanos from right here at Flanagan High School, and Nova, and just that power bat. I'm more looking for a power bat more, and I'll find the position rather than we need a catcher, because for the most part 5 catchers hit. Yes, you need a catcher, but do you go? You didn't sign Real Muto, so why are you going to waste a lot of money on a catcher if it's not that clear, obvious guy? And instead of a power bat, you get the best bats and then figure out where they're going to go. That's how I look at it more than a center fielder, because I can live with whoever the center fielder is if I got a 30 homer, 310 batting average, 900 OPS guy in a Castellanos who's a local kid who kind of gets it, grew up on the Marlins, and could want to be part of a turnaround. That's why I'm so high on him.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think Castellanos, I mean, you look at around the league, the Marlins aren't, I guess, the most attractive free agent destination. It has changed a little bit, I assume, with Jeter, and a lot of these guys growing up, admired Derek Jeter, and so I'm sure that's a factor. But at the end of the day, guys want to win, and so that's ultimately where they're gonna try to go to. Castellanos, I agree with you. I think he's priority number one. And then when you look at it, I like what you said about, it's so easy to say, go out and get a catcher, go out and get a catcher. Catcher is not a position that normally hits. If you can go out and get a guy that gives you, 230 and plays really good defense, that's what you want. That's all you need out of your catcher.
Correct.
And
if there, I don't mean to interrupt, but with the DH next year, you may not need that production from the catcher. If you get real thunder in the middle of your lineup on 2 bats that scare the heck out of people and allow you to lengthen your lineup, your catcher is not the priority at that point. Hitting, offensive side.
And believe it or not, the one thing that I will say that the organization's done really well over the last few years, and it's something that we started to see this year in the lineup, is there was, over the last couple of years, I remember there was a campaign, we need more left-handed power bats. And between Sanchez and Diaz and Chisholm, I do think that you have enough there. I don't think it really matters, we want another lefty power bat. I think you just get a power bat, righty or lefty, because between and again, it's a little bit of projection here, depending on if Sanchez and Diaz are for real. But a lineup that features power guys like a Castellanos and Aguilar, Diaz and Sanchez, that's a formidable middle of the lineup with one more guy. I want, it doesn't have to be a guy the caliber of Castellanos, but somebody else that can
the Duvall type. Basically,
yeah, exactly.
And I'll speak to this, Eric, where this is a big ballpark.
Yes.
They've kind of wanted gap hitters, which in theory always sounds good. No, I want power. I want exit velocity, guys that just can crank it out, and if the K rate's a little higher than I like, as long as I don't have 6 others like that, because this ballpark's going to frustrate a lot of people. We've seen what it does to Brian Anderson. So especially from the right side, that's what you talk about lefty. It plays a little better for a Schwarber if he were to somehow, which I can't imagine any scenario he comes here, because why come here for him? That. So I would trade some contact for elite power, and there are guys like that, rather than the guys that are having that, like Starling Castro his last year here, how many flyouts to the warning track in left center. It's like
Yeah.
guy, I think he ended up hitting over 20 or made it to 20 homers, which was remarkable for him to try to fill a power void. But he did a really good job in that regard. But I want that kind of hitter. A guy who could really scare you. He may KO a lot, but he's a threat, and if you make a mistake, you're going to pay.
Yeah, and I think to be fair, in a lineup like the Marlins have had, and this kind of a guy like Duvall, it's honestly a miracle what he was able to do with the Marlins this season. Because you look at what he was surrounded by in the lineup, what incentive was there to really pitch to Duvall? He wasn't really protected very well in the lineup by anybody.
Correct.
So if you can bring in a couple of guys, the cream kind of rises to the top where pitchers can't, they have to go after these guys that do strike fear and do have that power to go deep.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, let's segue over. Let's get some playoff talk. We saw the Red Sox and Yankees last night. I thought it was a good tactical game early. It was shaping up to be a good game. Then the Red Sox kind of knocked them out late, and I kind of had a hunch the Red Sox were going to win that. I kind of wanted the Yankees because I was pulling for Stanton, but
Right.
my head was saying, and I really had a good vibe on Evaldi and Cole disappointing was, but let's raise the issue of the one game. You like or no?
I mean, it makes for entertaining, and that's the ultimate reason why I don't think it's going to go anywhere, is because it's exciting for the fan. But from a team perspective, it's got to be a real letdown. Let's say, for the Yankees to play an entire season and be worthy of a playoff appearance and then have it kind of taken away all in one game, as opposed to getting a real series to determine who's the better team between them and Boston.
Yeah, the thing in favor of Boston is they were the home team. It's not like they did the upset. Yes, it definitely magnifies and speaks to what the Rays did to win that division, and they won it handily. I think the nightmare for MLB is if the Cardinals beat the Dodgers tonight, because it's a 106 loss team to go down, and it's very likely. I'm not going to say it will, but it's possibly, I should say, could happen. I think that raises a logistical nightmare. And how do you like this one tonight?
Actually, the Cardinals have that look. They have that look about them. They've won 21 of their last 25. Side note, I love the pitching matchup, by the way, tonight. I love the two old guys, kind of grizzled vets, on the bump between Scherzer and Wainwright. I like the Cardinals. I think that they're just hot at the right time.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good pick. I mean, I probably am leaning Dodgers, mainly because I'm going to believe in Scherzer not allowing the nightmare to happen. But I did look this up, and you did note Scherzer 37, Wainwright's 40. How old are you, Eric?
I am 23.
23. Okay, so Wainwright 109 postseason innings. Scherzer 112. And both guys remarkable. Look at these guys. You had Scherzer, who would be, I don't have a ballot for the Cy Young. I'm actually not voting in the BBWA this year, although I remain a member. He would probably be my Cy Young guy, and I know people could probably find flaw in that, but 236 Ks, 179 in the third innings, really made the Dodgers, gave them everything they thought. Wainwright, God bless him, 17-7, 3.05 ERA, 206 innings in a third, and 174 Ks. So that's the kind of old school contrast, and they're kind of conflicting myself, because I love Scherzer's higher K per nine, yet I love Wainwright's innings pitched with fewer strikeouts and just the savvy. And like you say, it's the old school matchup. It should be a fascinating game. I will say this: if I were to make a change, not that anyone would listen, I think that you could. The criteria to make the playoffs, and I would be in favor of one extra wild card per league. I wouldn't do like last year where the second place team automatically gets in, because that would have been a nightmare. So you had sub 500 teams records in the playoffs. So, but I think you could reseed when you get you can do a reseeding thing. Everyone gets in, like the Dodgers conceivably would have to be on the road
Right.
all the way to the World Series. Like it's mind-boggling that you could win 106 and have to be the road team, because now you're also getting the repeats. You're going to have, if the Dodgers do win tonight, they're going to play the Giants, a team they just played a gazillion times, and
Right.
then now you got the Rays and the and the Red Sox, teams they play just the end of the season, and at the end of the season, the Rays and the Red Sox. It's like I rather see, are we psyched up if you're not in Atlanta or Milwaukee for that series, or White Sox and the Astros? You're really excited,
Right.
other than those markets. You're kind of zeroing in on interleague, or excuse me, same division rematch up. So I wouldn't mind a reseeding format, so you avoid punishing the really talented teams.
Yeah,
The teams that have these years that are just
and I think an underrated, you know, argument against the one game playoff is in the at the beginning of every series, I want to see both teams' best pitchers going at it. And I think we're kind of robbed of that with, Scherzer having to go on the mound, and then the Dodgers are hamstrung if they win going into the next series against the Giants. They can't use Scherzer for a few games.
Yes, yeah, they need him tonight, and then they'll worry about it. And especially with Kershaw out,
Hmm.
and but the fascination is, Urias goes with a 20-game winner is going to the bullpen tonight.
Right.
It's going to be that fascinating game where your number two starter basically may be your closer. If
Right. Yeah.
you may go 6 with Scherzer and 3 with Urias, and if you could close it out, then you save your traditional bullpen. Now you may not have your starting rotation where you want to be going into the division series, but it would be fascinating. And I do like the one game I do like the all or nothing. It does keep us in tune.
It's
But
definitely
it is in the perfect system, because if you did do 2 of 3, then you're almost punishing the teams that did better, because you're icing them. And baseball to me has always played best in rhythm.
mhm.
It's not a once a week, twice a week. It's you play every day, and that's eventually how you see. And once you take that rhythm away, you can really, really, handicap a team that's probably should be rewarded. Let's go over to our friends on the west coast of Florida.
Mhm.
Team in the American League this year in the regular season. Tampa Bay Rays finishing with 100 wins. My question to you, Eric, is I gave you the lengthy breakdown on the pitching.
Absolutely.
Is the young pitching, the starters, is it going to catch up? Can you bullpen your way 162 and then another 11 wins in the playoffs?
It's really hard to see that working out and being sustainable over the course of an entire playoffs. Um, I mean, all three of the young guys that they have are, their three young starters are all quality. Um, but at the same time, they're not proven necessarily on this stage, number one. And then number two, it feels like the more pitchers that you throw out there, the more variables that you have to worry about. You never know who's going to have an off night when you're relying on so many guys. And it's almost like, you're walking through a minefield and you're just hoping not to step on the wrong one.
Yeah, yeah, it's risky. It is a hard formula. Now, I did like their quotes out of Tampa, and I do admire, like, again, completely outside the box. They don't overthink it, and talent over experience is their theme. And when you got a 24-year-old Shane McClanahan, who I
Hmm.
love, I think that kid's going to be a superstar, and a 22-year-old Shane Baz, who I actually a couple of years ago in the Arizona Fall League saw him pitching out there on the Salt River team that won the championship with Gerard Encarnacion and Alex Vesia and our Marlins players that were out there as well. Uh, he's really stepped it up, and that kid throws 100. McClanahan may have the filthiest stuff of any lefty. Now, in terms of if you just stat cast him and just look at everything,
Hmm.
but I think if you get 5 innings from either of those guys, you're happy. If you're Kevin Cash, you're happy. And then the wild part is Drew Rasmussen for Game 3, who is basically a rookie, but I don't know if he technically has rookie status because of some appearances elsewhere. But 26-year-old Drew Rasmussen, who And I like this too with Cash. He's there for game 3, but they want to take both those games in Tampa. And if they need him to help them get one of those games, they'll worry about. They want to go up to Fenway 2-0, and they'll worry about game 3 when they get there. I'm also, going away from the pitching aspect to maybe my favorite rookie right now is Juan De Franco, just to see how he performs on this stage. Because man, he has impressed in the short time that he's been up, and no stage seems too big. And you talk about the it factor. I want to see
Yeah.
how he does.
I mean, he strikes me as a guy that's just going to absolutely rake in the postseason. I think he's one of those guys you can put him anywhere, and that guy will just hit and hit and hit and reach base. You do wonder, is a guy like Randy Arozarena going to capture that same kind of postseason magic as last season?
Yeah.
It's definitely hard to replicate, but we have seen it from him in the past.
They're a fascinating offense because, Brandon Lau, when he hit almost 100 RBI, 99 RBIs, so almost 40 homers, and he hit 230 with an 850 OPS. You have Joey Wendell,
Yep.
who comes up with big hits. You got Diaz. You got so many. You got Zanino,
Yeah.
hitting 30 bombs, and from your catcher position, they got. If you look at their batting average, they would freak team. The old school, baseball fan out. If you just look at their batting average with nothing else, and you look at that lineup, you see all these 230, 240 hitters, and not realize that the OPS kind of means something too. You would sit around and go, how does this team win a game? Yet they don't all get in the slumps at the same time. You got Meadows. I think he had 100 RBIs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is a very interesting, dynamic team. But do they have that star? Do they have that Mookie Betts moment type of guy? Does this design? Is this a design for the regular season compared to the postseason type of team?
I mean, it's something that until we see it done and until we see it succeed, there's always going to be doubts about it. Because, like you said, for guys that aren't, singles hitters, aren't big hit tool guys, you're looking at, okay, well, they've never all slumped at the same time before, but every night they're getting every team's best pitcher. So you do wonder a little bit about that. That said, and this kind of feeds into what you were saying about the Marlins, this is exactly the lineup that, you're looking for. You're looking for high power guys. You could forgive the strikeout rate if the OPS and the slugging are good. And ultimately, I think that Juan De Franco kind of being that guy that can, give you that timely hit, whether it's a home run or not, and kind of being that consistent hitter in the lineup is a big thing for them.
Yeah, I mean, for what I just said, second in the majors in runs and sixth in homers.
Mm-hmm.
Your Tampa Bay Rays. So it's going to be fascinating. We're going to see them going. In a couple of days. I'm looking forward to that, and it's going to be really good stuff to see. As we kind of get toward the end here, I'm going to wrap up basically by noting that I'm going to be going to a perfect game event up in Jupiter, Florida at Roger Dean Stadium. It's the 2021 WWBA World Championship 18U tournament. And Eric, what I like about this tournament, is a couple of years ago, I was up there. I saw Bobby Witt Jr. A year or two before that, I saw Will Banfield. Basically, this is a showcase event. And those backfields over on the Marlins and the Cardinals side, and there's even events going on down the road in Palm Beach. It's the best of the best. And I bring this up back in, I believe it's 2008. Christian Yelich was here playing on those fields. And that backfield, he is a teammate of Nolan Arenado, and they won. That California team won that championship. And I wrote about it real early in spring training, but they had about 6 or so current big leaguers on that roster. And, I'm a believer in what Man on Second's doing is we're going to cover it at all levels. And these marquee games and marquee events that we can get to, if I physically or anyone from our team can get there, we're going to be doing it. Because I do believe baseball in South Florida, in the state of Florida, is right up there with football. in terms of the talent, the opportunities. It's just I think you're on mute, Eric. Um, is up there, and we need to kind of magnify, and we're going to be an outlet for this, and I'll be doing some reports from there. But just kind of your thoughts on these youth events, and these guys are in our backyards basically.
Yeah, I mean, you think of all the baseball talent we do have here, and it's a good look at what the future of Major League Baseball is going to be in 5-10 years. Because granted, not all these guys are going to succeed, but like you said, the Christian Yelich's, the Nolan Arenados, you're going to see at least a handful of guys at these events, 3 or 5. These are guys that are going to be drafted highly, and they're going to make a difference on some major league team in the future. And I think it's important for Man on Second to kind of highlight that and give a spotlight to the younger players that are coming up, so that fans, number one, can get acquainted, and number two, it just helps these guys kind of as they go along to get a little bit more coverage.
Yeah, and I go back 2003. Obviously, Marlins win the World Series. A 20-year-old Miguel Cabrera is doing things that he wasn't supposed to do. And I went to Mike Lowell. Lowell was probably about 25 at the time, and I said, Mikey, could you believe what Miggy's doing? And he goes, I can't even fathom it. He goes, at 20 years old, I was hitting with a metal bat at FIU, and this kid. But he goes, but you have to keep in mind, in Venezuela, Miggy was playing in big tournaments since he was a kid, like 8, 9, 10 years old. He was an international sensation as a young teenager, Miguel Cabrera, and these showcases showed that. And Nasim Nunez, the Marlins number second round pick a couple of years ago, I interviewed him one of my last years at MLB.com when I was up there for this event. He was on a team, and I actually interviewed him then, before the Marlins even drafted him. And again, you had Flash Gordon was his manager, Tom Gordon, Dee's father, and Nick's dad. That's who's coaching these guys, former players. We had Dayton Moore's kid was in this tournament, the GM of Kansas City. He, his wife was there, and Dayton was doing his GM stuff back in Kansas City. But their kids are out there, and it's just a lot of fun, because every field and games at 8:30 in the morning going to 7 at night, and you're going to walk into, and it's funny because you're going to know who the players are, because about 100 scouts are going to go to that field.
Yeah.
If you don't know where to be, all you have to do is look, because they will kind of move in mass to this event, and it is fun. The downside of showcase ball is sometimes the instincts, reflectiveness of baseball is lost in it, the improvisation, because these are all, you're looking, for power, you're looking for speed, you're looking for power arms, you're looking for all those things that players, their personality on the field kind of gets washed away. It was almost like one big NFL scouting combine where obviously the NFL Network and others televise that, and you see the quarterback who could throw it 100 yards, and the guy who runs through tires better than ever. Now these games they're controlled. They're 5-6 batters per inning, so you're not really getting, you make your pitching changes. No one's designed to look bad, and everyone, but you are facing the best, and I do love that aspect of it. And I'm fascinated. I'm looking forward to spending 3 days there and giving you guys reports. And I'll have in their next podcast, we'll have that, and I'll be on social sending stuff out. But just wanted to note that as we get this rolling. And Eric, thanks so much for pinch hitting.
Absolutely.
You did a great job. We really appreciate it. And now to wrap the show up for us, please.
Absolutely. So just to wrap up, I'm gonna plug Joe's Twitter. Not that anybody needs it. Everybody knows Joe, at Joe Frisario. You can follow me at Eric Wiedeke on Twitter. Remember, the episode will be up on YouTube at 5 Reasons YouTube, and you can follow us and our content at Man on Second Baseball. Mike will be back next week. Just remember that.
Thanks.
Absolutely.